socialist movement to end all capitalist oppression and exploitation.
Let me tell you this, Washington State. We in America, we don't suffer from scarcity. We suffer from greed.
We stand for Bernie because he knows that we need housing across this country. We need density in our cities, and we need a place to call home for every single person. That's why he's fighting for federal investments in social housing for everyone.
Hey everybody, I just have some thoughts. Something's just been kind of brewing in my brain since Super Tuesday. On March 3rd, Ilhan Omar, who is a congresswoman who's famously progressive, tweeted, "Imagine if the progressives consolidated last night like the moderates consolidated. Who would have won?" That's what we should be analyzing. I feel confident a united progressive movement would have allowed for us to build together, that's a hashtag, build together, and win Minnesota and other states we narrowly lost. And my first impression of that, or my first response to that, was that what I've seen consistently in the last 5 years, 6 years within the progressive movement, there is a tendency to vilify or to reject anybody who is seen as not marching vigorously enough in the proper direction, which would be the right side of history, but the left side of any reasonable political compass. What I see now is the possibility of those hardcore progressives to be proven, more or less beyond a shadow of a doubt, to be the outliers of the left or of the Democrat Party. They've assumed a lot more authority than is actually properly their due. And what would need to happen for that to actually manifest, this dethroning of hyper-leftist progressivism from commanding the Overton window of the Democratic Party, would be a general view from Democrats or moderates that they're not going to put up with that crap anymore. What Bernie didn't do in the last 4 years, since losing the nomination to Hillary Clinton, was to go out there and to build actual ties with moderates, with non-progressives, and to cement his position as somebody who can compromise. What you see, and what I've seen online, which has been really annoying to me, is the capture, for instance, the capture of Reddit by the, I don't want to say Bernie bros, but the Bernie contingent has captured at least our politics, captured the ability to move itself to the front page constantly. They're constantly, this very specific attitude is constantly represented on the front page of Reddit, while the opposite attitude from the Donald is suppressed and is now even actively being hounded off of the website. So that you have this, what you've had on Reddit at least, is this magnificent echo chamber, this big bubble of Bernie-ness that hasn't actually translated into actual votes for Bernie. One of the arguments that I see constantly is that if you don't go along with the Bernie plan, you don't care. There's something wrong with you if you don't want to solve the problems of the world, if you don't want to solve the healthcare problems, if you don't want to solve the environmental problems. There's all these problems that via Bernie's rhetoric and through the rhetoric of his followers, they act as though they are the ones who have the proper solution for these plans. And it might be the case that they have the best solutions, but the rhetoric around that they have ownership over these problems. And if you don't agree with them, you somehow are morally unworthy. You're somehow a bad person or are complicit in the evils of the world. And another thing that I've seen with progressivism, with the kind of the Bernie contingent, maybe not necessarily him, but this constant desire to blame society, to blame the billionaires, to blame the millionaires for the problems of everybody else. Now, it might be the case that we could persuade the richer among us and the strongest among us to pitch in more for our society, to lift all of our society up. I think that is actually the basis of a fruitful society, is that everybody's pitching in. But the vilification and the blaming, the open blaming and the resentment that is manifested by these groups against these other groups that have the wealth doesn't add up to actually being able to take responsibility for your own failures. It seems to be a lack of personal responsibility at the heart of the progressive movement as I've seen it manifest. It's always about blaming the structure, blaming the system, blaming the world for you not getting ahead. And that translates into a phenomena that Bernie himself kind of hit on in his, he made a little statement, about 20-minute speech about where he's at now and how he's going to keep fighting for the nomination and how he wants it to be a campaign about ideas. And he talks about his movement as being anti-corporatist, that is distinct from Biden's movement. He says that a bunch of billionaires are donating to Biden. And then he brings up that his money's coming from these $18 on average donations from individuals. And when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, of course, the people who don't have will totally be up to buying a lottery ticket in order to fast track their having. It seems that Bernie Sanders, on a rhetorical level, and his group of followers on a rhetorical level, have failed at actually building bridges with moderates and with conservatives. And that doesn't add up to a winning strategy. Furthermore, on top of that is a consistent failure to bring about a common cause, a love of America. It doesn't seem like this movement actually is comfortable loving this country. They're more comfortable at being spiteful towards this country. And I just don't think that holds up against what Trump is offering, which is this blustery, I think you could even say belligerent adoration of the symbolism of America. If you have a bunch of people adoring this country and a bunch of people deploring this country, the adorers of the country are going to be more prone to participate in the process of getting their will instated into representatives and into laws and so on and so forth. What I want to see is a change in direction of the Democratic Party. I want to see a consolidation of the progressives into the lesser radical regions of the left side of politics. That's what I think will ultimately be the result if Bernie fails. If Bernie fails this time, you're going to have a lot of people screaming even louder, but the wind's going to actually be out of their sails because he will have twice failed to translate his dream of America into reality in American life. I'm open to learning more about how we can go about renovating certain systems that need to be renovated and modernized, such as healthcare and such as other different programs, in order to provide our country with a higher, lowest possible threshold of having. I think that there can be ways of achieving that. I myself, because I've been studying the progressive mindset, I see that beyond the Bernie Sanders dream of, taking from the rich and giving to the poor, it's on the verge of being taken over. Once this party gets into power, once the progressives get into power, they will institute all that intersectionality gibberish. All of that critical theory will actually be what is actually implemented. And that will cause even more damage to the morale of our country than what we're experiencing right now. Those are some unorganized thoughts on what's going on right now with the presidential election and the Democratic side of the nomination process. And I'm looking forward to learning more about this, and I look forward to your comments down in the comments section. Let me know what you think.